Hello. Thank you, Alexei, and thank you, Vox Implant, everybody, for having me here. I'm going to talk about the CPaaS and API market from kind of a broader perspective. I think I need the slide advancer, the clicker. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to give you a high-level view of this. First of all, what we're talking about at this conference today, this is mainstream. This is big and growing fast, and it's being widely used throughout enterprises around the world. But there are some issues, and I want to point to where those issues are today, and then what I think are the future opportunities and some things that we're just seeing evidence of today, but will become much bigger possibilities and opportunities for value-add services going forward. Let me start out with the market. I am with IDC. We are a big market research company. We do a lot of market sizing, and here's our estimate of the CPaaS worldwide market. It's a big market. It's $4.5 billion this year in this business, and it's growing at a fast rate, 39% over the next 5 years. So this is a very exciting space. There's not a lot of markets that are this big and growing this fast. What's driving this? First of all, it's tying into the transformation we're seeing with technology around DevOps approaches where we need to create so many new software applications. We need new tools, new techniques, new processes, and that scope of DevOps is what CPaaS taps right into. The developments we see are at the technology levels with containers, Dockers, microservices, other capabilities also accelerate the momentum here. Every enterprise is trying to change customer experience. Customer experience in some cases is more important than the product that an organization sells. So how do you change that customer experience? How do you differentiate it? APIs and CPaaS is a key way to do that and be successful at differentiating and creating high-level experiences. And then digital transformation. Every enterprise in the world is involved in this. How do they change, become more digital, become more active? So there's a lot of investment in digital, and that plays directly to CPaaS. So it's adopted already by millions of developers, and really where we are today is APIs make it as easy to build an interactive conversation as it is to build a web page. It's really gone mainstream. Here's some of the use cases we see driving it today. Voice and messaging are the predominant ones. On the voice side, a big area is anonymous calling or masked phone numbers. Just about any e-commerce or sharing economy business you can think of needs that. IVRs are a way for call center call flows to work better and more effectively using APIs to control those call flows. Broadcasts send out millions of messages to large numbers of users based on marketing programs and campaigns. And call tracking. Companies want to be able to measure how effective their calls are and get an ROI understanding of their calling. So there's a lot of interesting use cases in voice. These are some of the top ones, the biggest, most common ones. On the messaging side, SMS text messaging, these are the top ones here. Two-factor authentication. To authenticate a user is who they say they are by sending a message, text message with a one-time password. Notifications of something being delivered or the delivery time. This adds a lot to customer experience. Appointment reminders, sending out a simple text message to remind you you've got an appointment, a doctor appointment, dentist, whatever it is. Customer support is using text messaging more and more as a way to enable that support. There's a lot of event-based messaging. Think of this as critical notifications. Text is a great way to do that because getting a text is instant, immediate. Everybody looks at that. These are some of the top use cases we see driving this market today. But don't forget about video. Video, unlike voice and messaging, is very much based on industry applications, but it is an equally powerful solution. We've organized the role of video and APIs into 3 categories. Communications and collaboration is one on your left there. Think of video-assisted sales. If you can see a picture of something you might want to buy or look at, or a live video of it, or even more, have some sort of augmented reality capability, so you could imagine driving a car, or you could see how a new piece of furniture would look in your apartment. Video banking, there's a huge value in having a live interactive conversation to understand what's going on and have questions answered. And telehealth, doctor-patient visits over video has huge value, extending healthcare system to people who can't physically get there and simplifying the approach and the cost for it. The middle category we call show me. This is see what I see. I'm a field technician out in the field. I got to fix something that's broken. I don't have the skill set. I need an expert back at the office to look at it with me live, real time, and show me things I can do with it. Insurance claims submission. Why not just use the camera on your phone, take a picture, and submit the claim if you're in a car crash, for example? And customer support applications. And then there's a whole series of others around education and media. But it's a key area. It is smaller than where we see voice and messaging today, but video has some really critical use cases around it, and APIs are a great way to build those solutions. So that's a quick overview of why we care about this, but I wanted to make this real, so I have some examples of companies who are doing what I think are interesting things with it. And the first one is 1-800-Flowers. This is a big retailer of gifts. Anybody heard of this? They're mostly North America based. But it's a way to send flowers or gifts to somebody, usually a family member. So, for example, Mother's Day is a big holiday in the US, and I want to send flowers to my mother. So I call up 1-800-Flowers, or I go online and I order them and have them delivered. But here's the trick with 1-800-Flowers. The person who buys it never receives the product because it goes to somebody else. So how do you know if they got it, right? I send my mother flowers on Mother's Day. How do I know she got them? What 1-800-Flowers does is a very simple thing. They send me a text message telling me they were delivered. Now I know I'm great, I'm good, my mother got them. So what this company has done is they ride the waves of disruption. They started out in a store, a flower shop, just on Main Street. People would come into the store, talk about what they want, who they're sending the flowers to, and do it. And they've ridden the waves of disruption, and now as they think about AI bots and machine learning, they have this huge scale to deliver flowers anywhere, but they are able to do it in a personalized way, as though they were back in that one-on-one conversation in a shop on Main Street. So they're leveraging all these technologies, and you can see these capabilities. They're very innovative. They've got all the natural language access via Amazon Alexa skill sets, Google Assistant. They've got chatbots in Facebook Messenger and Apple. They are getting to the point now where the recipient will get a message saying, somebody's ordered something from you, where do you want it delivered and when? Or do you want to change the product before it's even got there? So what they're doing is making this personalized and leveraging all these interactive technologies to do that. A key point that 1-800-Flowers has learned is that channels are different. We all talk about omni-channel and multiple channels, but all channels are different. For example, voice is very widely used now for natural language recognition. Voice is great for command and control functions. It's not that great for a conversational mode. So you want to use the channels appropriately that way. Here's another example. Marks and Spencer. It's a British retailer. This is an old line, 140-year-old legacy enterprise. They did a really simple thing. They get lots of customer calls every day. And the way it has been set up is, like many organizations, they have an IVR tree. There are 20 options. That's crazy, right? Everybody hates IVR trees. What do? You want to get to the live agent. So they created a bot called Connie, who answers in natural language when you call, and then will automatically route that call to the right place. So what you can see here, that this is really a simple application, but they transformed this experience based on the caller intent to quickly get to the answer or the place that the answer exists for that caller. So they're handling over 1 million calls a month, and they launched this thing about a year ago. Very simple application. There are many other things loaded on top of this to come, but you can see the power of what that can do, just putting in an API system with a chatbot on the IVR call flow. Another example, Aramex. This is a package delivery company based in the Middle East. And again, this is a company that believes in innovation and technology to differentiate their business and drive their strategy. So they were really the first company in the logistics business to put a chatbot in WhatsApp to let their customers, who are people who want to ship something, have a conversation about shipment options and times and delivery options, et cetera. So they've integrated with a messaging app on WhatsApp, and they can do this track and trace functionality in there. Again, this was introduced about a year ago. They've served over 1 million customers with it. They've had a decline in the number of phone queries and an increase in the number of shipment queries. So when you talk about customer experience and customer service, these are things that they can solve today in a very simple way with a CPaaS approach and get major business outcome results. One more I wanted to talk about is a company called Delivery Hero. This is a food delivery company. These are very common all over the world today. I don't think Delivery Hero is here in Russia. I think they tend to specialize in Middle East, North Africa, Latin America, a couple of Asia markets. So it's an online food ordering and delivery service. This is a very complex process. It's actually a 6-step process if you break it down. First, you or me, I want to order lunch. So the first thing I do is I search for food. What restaurant? What food do I want? Then I place my order. The restaurant receives the order. They have to have a system to do that. They prepare the food. Then they have to coordinate a delivery person, and then I eat it. So there's 6 steps there. Delivery Hero today is in 40 countries. They have over 400,000 restaurant partners. You can see the volumes they're running, 180 million orders in 3 months. Their peak month hit about 70 million orders. And you can see the growth rates year over year there. This is a scaled business that is still facing tremendous growth. How do they manage that? Well, one of the ways they're managing all that is through automation and use of communications APIs. A key part of the communications is with the drivers, or the riders, as they call them sometimes, the people who deliver the food to you. The driver, in some of these markets, the driver has to respond to a pickup request from a restaurant within 30 seconds. If they don't respond in 30 seconds, an automated phone call is placed to that driver. It's very important. This has to happen fast. So then there's a notification process. There's also a piece that needs to authenticate drivers. In some of the South American countries where Delivery Hero operates, there are all kinds of promotions and offers, and they've found that some people pretend to be a first-time user every time to get those promotion deals. So they need to authenticate drivers. So there are many applications and use cases. Delivery Hero's business wouldn't exist without interactive real-time communications, and they wouldn't be able to do it without this API-led approach. So those are some examples of what I think are pretty innovative use cases, just touching the surface. There are many, many others. But now I want to shift a little bit to, what are we talking about here? The numbers I showed at the beginning of the size of the market, the fact is that 90% of this market is voice phone calls, SMS messages, and renting a phone number. Those three things have been around for decades. And when you look at that market, when you step back and look at the telecommunications market, you would call those a perpetually declining market. You look at any mobile operator phone company in the world, and they will see text message traffic declining. In many cases, voice phone calls are declining. So we've built this CPaaS business, and a lot of enterprises have taken good advantage of it, but it's got one foot in this perpetually declining market. It's a structural problem that we have. So what do we do about this? How do we solve this? And I think there's some key things to think about today that point to the value here is not connecting phone calls and making sure SMS messages are received. The value is in that software layer that does the connectivity and manages this process. And here's some examples of that. And I know Alexei talked about some of this as well, and I want to pick up on what he said. This drag and drop visual editor capability, a couple examples there on the right. This is about simplifying the developer's job, meaning you can just drag and drop to change those call flows rather than having to code. It simplifies the developer's job on the one hand. On the other hand, it makes CPaaS accessible to non-technical users. So you're broadening the market of people who can build these applications. And that's very important because there aren't enough software developers in the world, now or over the next 5 years, to build all the applications that digital business needs. So this makes it really easy to create automated workflows. The obvious example we see today is for IVR call flows. There are other good applications beyond IVRs, but it simplifies it. And the big value we've seen on this is where companies are able to revise. They're able to change their call flows. A lot of times what we see when companies put in a new call flow, maybe they put in a chatbot, or they change how they flow, or they use natural language somewhere, they actually may make a mistake, and customers don't like it because they did the wrong thing or something. So they need to be able to change quick. Change that call flow. That's a bad idea to send that query to a chatbot. Let's get that back to a live agent. So what we've found a lot of times when companies implement some new call flows, customer satisfaction may go down a little bit. But then with this kind of a capability, this quick drag and drop visual editor, they can change and fix it, and then customer satisfaction goes up above where they started and even exceeds their goals. So it allows quick iterations on developer productivity. Now, what I want to look at here is, if you think about this today, that's pretty simple, being able to iterate on an IVR call flow. But this is a process automation tool where you can automate all of the underlying processes. You want to send that to a chatbot, you want to change the language, any number of things, you're automating all of the elements and creating new service chains without having to worry about any technical aspects. That's what the potential, I think, of what we see today as these simple drag and drop visual editors. It's a process automation that allows us to do things in a lot different way. So that's one platform capability CPaaS has to go beyond just voice calls and messaging. And here's another one. This is kind of a complicated story, but the way we, and probably all of you who are building applications today, the way you do it is on the left-hand side, your left-hand side of this, where you've got, if you're using communications APIs, you've got the API platform, maybe it's Vox Implant or anybody else, and that's where you're connecting calls, connecting messages. And then separately from that, you have your application. And maybe it's sitting in the cloud somewhere on Yandex or Google or Microsoft or somewhere. And in that application, you've had to set up and provision the cloud elements of CPU, storage, whatever processing, whatever applications. So you've got basically two platforms. Communications platform here, application logic here, and you're using APIs to connect them. On the right-hand side of this, saying blend those together, run the application, the business logic, on the communications platform. Why do you want to do that? Reduces your infrastructure cost and your maintenance and the time to set up two stacks. It gives you a complete tool set to do debugging and manage all of these things across the whole stack. You can orchestrate service chains easier. You can actually get some new transparency into the capabilities with other developer tool sets, CLI tools, source codes, and you can evolve this thing. Now, this isn't going to be for all apps, right? There's no question. But when you think about the apps that are stateful, where you're triggering a live communications, this is a great way to do it. Now, what I think about this is there's a future evolution here. There is a evolution of compute towards serverless computing. It's not really a thing yet. It's not really widely used yet, but it is coming. And as that evolves, this becomes more and more important. And I think that there's a real opportunity to leverage that communications platform to build more and more capabilities right on it. Suggest one there, compliance as a service. If you need to be compliant because you're in banking or healthcare or other regulated industries, government applications, you need that stack to be fully compliant with what you require. All right, so why are we doing all of this? I think the driver for us is to unify the engagement process. Just about every enterprise that I see has a very fragmented environment on the tools their workforce uses, the tools their customers and clients use. It's very fragmented. So what we're trying to do is unify that. You know, we want to have these channels. We want to use all the channels, not just voice, but use all the channels we can find, not just SMS, but also IP messaging. We want to be able to escalate and move between those channels. We want to be able to stitch those channels together so that we have Context can carry from one channel to another. We want all kinds of analytics on what's going on. We need security. We need integrations with the business applications. This is what we're trying to do, and this is why CPaaS has a huge power and appeal. But there's a caution on this. My caution is stay in your swim lane. Why do I say that? This environment, when we talk about customer engagement, customer experience, is complicated. This is 3 types of technologies that are coming together to solve customer experience and create different experiences. We got communications platforms on the lower left. This is CPaaS, this is what we're talking about here. On the top, we have marketing automation platforms. Sometimes these are called customer data platforms. Over on the right are contact center platforms. If I'm a CMO or a chief digital officer, what do I use? Because I will tell you, every one of these companies talks about multi-channel. Every one of them talks about APIs. It's crowded and it's confusing. So the point about staying in the swim lane is about focusing on best of breed. And I think that communications, and particularly interactive communications, is critical for all of these processes. The marketing automation platforms aren't going to be able to do that as well as a communications platform. And you need to think about that. Who can do it well, has the scalability, security, all those attributes. All right, so just wanted to finish up on my last page here on where we see this going and the things to think about as we move from where we are today to next gen, or what we're calling conversational intelligence, adding more and more intelligence to communications. These are the real challenges we see in the market today. First, scale. We're just beginning this, but how do you send 1 million messages per day? Sounds easy, but it's not. There are all kinds of limitations, from what the carriers will let you send through their messaging platforms to how much an API platform will scale. But you need to think about that. And we are seeing many use cases that require 1 million messages a day or more. It's not that unusual. Analytics. I want to know a lot more detail about how is that phone call quality, the quality of the call. How is that? And I want to know what's affecting that on the different legs of the path it travels. How do I know a message got sent and was read? And how do I know that for SMS versus Facebook Messenger? Where are my analytics that tells me what's going on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp Messenger? We do know that IP messaging tends not to be as reliable as SMS, but where are the analytics tools and the reliability measures that can help me monitor that? Reliability is a key point. CPaaS, these APIs we're talking about, is a cloud-based capability. It's in the cloud, and the cloud means Google, Amazon, Azure, Yandex, others. But those cloud architectures are not necessarily built for real-time communications, real-time interactive communications. So how do you ensure that the cloud architecture, the underlying cloud architecture, is suited for what we want to do at the communications layer? Outages. Here's a question. Today, we think about diversity by application and performance, by application and geography, right? So, but pretty soon, we're going to look more and more at diversity for performance, because outages can't happen. As this goes more mainstream, more enterprises use it, they can't tolerate outages. the traditional standard is 5 nines of uptime, and most of the cloud and applications like that are nowhere near 5 nines. So how do we handle those outages? Trust. Who's listening? Who owns the data? This is a big question, and more that data is going to have to be tagged and identified and have capabilities to delete it where that user wants it deleted. So the selection criteria more and more is coming up to how trustworthy is this platform, and that it can do what I need it to do to protect my business and keep my business compliant with privacy rules. And then last, liabilities. Cloud communications is great, but if you miss some of the core capabilities that everybody expects, like emergency calling capability and other things, there's a real problem there. And again, enterprises need to think about this. So those are the key issues we see today and how we're going to get from here to conversational intelligence coming up real near term in the future. Thank you very much.